If I asked you to describe your best friend, you would probably have no difficulty in doing that. You might describe your friend as kind, tall, smart, compassionate. Describing someone that you know is easy to do. But if I asked you to describe a variable, how would you go about doing that? I mean, variables are just numbers in spreadsheets. They have a name, but how could I describe them? If we're going to do statistics, we need a way to describe variables. And the way that we describe our variables is descriptive statistics. Descriptive statistics help us to prepare our data so that they are ready to present to the public. You see, when we collect data, our data are raw. In fact, that is exactly what we call them, raw data. They are not displayed. They are not summarized. They are not ready for presentation. It's this vast collection of numbers that could mean really nothing because we can't see it clearly. We want to have a way to prepare our data so that we can show what our data mean and others can understand what we found in our statistical analysis. How then can we prepare our data for public consumption? Let me use an analogy of cooking. If we have raw food, we could prepare that food by slicing and dicing, perhaps removing any bad parts so that we're only serving up the best. And we could display our food in a way that is most appetizing. We could do something analogous with our data. We might want to parse our data in a specific way. We might want to remove the bad parts like outliers or data points that aren't actually supposed to be in our data set. And then we could prepare our data and display it in a way that makes it most easy for the public, for our readers, to see and understand what we found. Now let me quickly add, this analogy that I'm using of cooking is in no way suggesting that we cook the data or cook the books. I'm not suggesting that we do anything that is unethical. That is not the point with descriptive statistics. Rather, the opposite. Descriptive statistics allow us to show clearly what the data actually mean in a way that is easy for our readers to see and comprehend. When I talk about removing the bad parts, sometimes we will present the bad and the good together. Again, so we can most clearly show what is evident in our data set. But the larger point of descriptive statistics is that we always want to display our data honestly. And descriptive statistics give us a way to summarize our data, prepare our data for presentation to the readers or to the larger public. Well then, how might we do that? And there are two specific types of descriptive statistics that we're going to use to describe single variables. The first is by using pictures or graphical displays, bar graphs, histograms, box plots, stem and leaf plots, all of which we're going to learn about in this series of videos. Now, the second way that we might describe our variables is with numbers. And to make those numbers more legible, we will probably put our numbers into tables. We could create frequency tables showing how many scores exist in our data set and how often each type of score occurs. Or perhaps we will summarize a large amount of information into a single data point, such as a mean or a standard deviation. In this example of a frequency table, we see the values that are represented, we see the frequency of each, and a percentage, which best describes how many of each person was in our data set. If we're going to use our descriptive statistics, we need to know how to choose which type of graph or table or numerical presentation is best for our data. How do we choose? And the answer, as always, will depend upon the level of measurement. Are our data nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? And are the data categorical or continuous? Categorical data will be described using frequency tables and bar graphs, whereas quantitative data will be described using frequency tables and histograms. Well, these are the most common ways that we might use descriptive statistics with our data, but there are other types of graphs that we'll want to learn about as well. Some which can be very useful, and others which we probably ought to avoid. We're going to cover all of that this week in this series of videos. Now, you may have noticed that both categorical and continuous variables use frequency. Therefore, let's talk about what are the types of frequency that we might calculate for our data.